Given the extra time, he passed and was able to go on to a residency and his career. The settlement achieved by the DOJ changed the course of Fred's life. Not only is his future coming to life as he completes his residency, Fred is now also happily married to Elaine, the love of his life, a strong, constant source of support. Literally, as I was writing about Fred, my cell phone rang. It was Fred himself, excited to share some good news with me that just happened that day, February 24th, 2017. He had finished his last case in the operating room. He was a resident in anesthesiology, turned in his hospital badge, and picked up her certificate of completion of anesthesiology training. Fred had attained his goal. He is now a practicing anesthesiologist. I must admit, a tear or two rolled down my cheeks hearing this. Fred finished by telling me, "You know, you were the very first person I called. You have made such a positive difference in my life." Receiving accommodation not only made a world of difference to Fred personally, but loudly announced that the Department of Justice meant to enforce the law of the land and will defend disabled men and women who request accommodations and whose rights are violated by the testing agencies. In a press release, Thomas E. Perez, Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division, noted, "In the past, demands for unnecessary or redundant documentation, burdensome and expensive repeated professional evaluations, or irrelevant evaluative tests unrelated to the ability to demonstrate one's knowledge or skills on an examination prevented individuals with appropriately documented disabilities from pursuing their chosen professions." Under the terms of the settlement agreement, NBME is now committed to providing reasonable testing accommodations to persons with disabilities who seek to take the USMLE in accordance with the requirements of the ADA. In addition, it will grant Frederick XX, a Yale Medical School student, the accommodations of double the standard testing time and a separate testing area to take the USMLE. The requirements under which the NBME will consider requests for accommodations can be found at ada.gov/nbme.htm. It can request documentation only about 1, the existence of a physical or mental impairment, 2, whether the applicant's impairment substantially limits one or more major life activities within the meaning of the ADA, and 3, whether and how the impairment into the applicant's ability to take the USMLE under standard conditions. It must carefully consider the recommendations of qualified professionals who have personally observed the applicant in a clinical setting and recommended accommodations based on the clinical judgment that the individual is substantially limited in one or more major life activities within the meaning of the ADA and needs the requested test accommodations in order to demonstrate his or her ability and achievement level. Such recommendations are to be based on generally accepted diagnostic criteria and supported by reasonable documentation. It must also consider all evidence indicating whether an individual's ability to read is substantially limited within the meaning of the ADA, including the extent to which it is restricted as to the conditions, manner, or duration as compared to the reading ability of most people. What kind of physicians do dyslexic men and women make? What do their patients think of them? Here's what Dr. Romberg's patient wrote to him. Dear Fred, what a wonderment it was to wake up without so much as a headache. You are marvelous. I have heard stories from friends who have never met their anesthesiologist. Well, let's just say, I hope you never underestimate the power of your presence and a joke, easing a patient's state of mind. I am most appreciative. Thank you.